does this mean for Bitcoin? What does this mean for El Salvador?
Yeah, well, as you mentioned today, it became legal tender in El Salvador. So what it means for Bitcoin is there are businesses in El Salvador that will be required to accept this if they're technologically able. We've seen several businesses today start to accept it in El Salvador. It's a lot of the larger ones, McDonald's, Pizza Hut, Starbucks. We've seen transactions in Bitcoin go through at some of these larger chains in El Salvador. Also, citizens in El Salvador, if they want, they can pay their taxes in Bitcoin as well. So, it did become legal tender. It is going to operate alongside the dollar for now in El Salvador. So the dollar will still be a national currency there as well. So if people don't want to use Bitcoin, they can use the dollar as well. But businesses will be required to accept it if they are technologically able as of today.
That said, with the president saying to buy the dip, the technical glitches, Aya, should we be at all skeptical of what's happening here?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think, it will take time. I agree with what Mike Novogratz said, that this is going to take a lot of time. The infrastructure in order to accept these payments at scale will take significant manpower and time and investment as well. And I think while they're putting into place thousands of ATMs, the payment processors in all of these different businesses will take time. But I think for a country, taking a step back from what Michael said, even around some of those larger companies, for a country where a quarter of their GDP is based on remittances, I think this is much larger in terms of the impact it can have on the population and their ability to move money across borders that perhaps they can't today, but could if they just had a mobile device.
That said, the population isn't necessarily too excited about it. Michael, I've seen polls that show a lot of distrust among folks who live in the country. How widespread is that, and could that really slow down broader adoption?
Sure, yeah, we've seen polls in the weeks leading up to this that about 70% of El Salvadorans prefer to use the dollar to Bitcoin. And we've also seen that about 70% have said that they would like to see this Bitcoin law repealed. So there is quite a bit of skepticism of it on the ground. I also think there's a pretty large financial education learning curve. El Salvador is not a country that has a lot of its citizens using the traditional banking system. Cash is still king in El Salvador. So when you bring in this sort of new technology like cryptocurrency, there is sort of a hesitancy and there is sort of some pushback at first. So we are seeing a lot of people that are skeptical on the ground. There were a lot of questions this morning with the Chivo wallet. People couldn't download it. It was offline for a little while, so the government could fix some glitches. So it was a little bit of a rocky start, and there is some skepticism in El Salvador.
That said, Aya, we've learned that we can never judge Bitcoin on any given day. But what do you make of what's behind this price move? How much does this have to do with El Salvador, or is it something else?
Yeah, good question. So it had nothing to do really with El Salvador. What we saw today was very much what we saw historically with BitMEX liquidations. And so you're seeing over the last couple of weeks, a lot of whether it's retail and institution on overseas exchanges pile into derivatives products for futures in products that maybe they didn't necessarily know or were funding correctly. And there was a leverage waterfall. And so cascading liquidations happened this morning. Now, what really interesting is that this was very much like a bullish bear day. And so we saw that bounce back really quickly. So as was discussed earlier, we dropped down to 44. We're now at a support level of 47. I still think we're very much nearing that 60K mark. And so we're continuing to see a lot of, I think, of the 2.6 billion in liquidations, 1.1 billion was in Bitcoin, 700 million was in Ethereum. And this was largely driven by Ethereum and DeFi assets. So still very bullish on long-term view for price on Bitcoin.
If you're that optimistic, when do we get to 60K? And also, we've had the co-founder of Kraken on the show who say we're going to get to 100 before the end of the year. Would you agree?
Yeah, so may not agree with Jesse on that. He's very bullish, but that's a good question. I think we'll see it in the next couple of weeks. Really, the what pushed us beyond 50K wasn't the leverage on Bitcoin. It was people accumulating Bitcoin at spot and buying it in size. And what we were seeing at FalconX, at least today, is a lot of these institutions took the opportunity to buy the dip. At not only Bitcoin but across different assets, and so I think we'll see that 60K sooner than we expect. I think in the next couple of weeks.